The sun was already beginning to dip below the horizon when Mason Daniels clocked out of his shift at the lumber warehouse. His hands were raw from splinters, and the sweat on his back had long dried into salty patches on his navy blue uniform. Mason was 26, a quiet, steady presence on the floor, never late, never loud, never one to stir the pot. Most of his co-workers knew him as the guy who brought his own lunch and never complained, even on triple shift weeks. He lived in a modest one-bedroom rental on the south side of Willow Creek, drove a well-maintained 2016 silver hatchback, and kept a running tally of every dollar he saved. He didn't live large. But he lived honestly. That's why it was so strange when he stepped into the parking lot that evening and his car was gone. At first, Mason blinked in confusion. He stood still, scanning the lot like he'd misplaced a phone. He retraced his steps, then circled twice around the far side, wondering if exhaustion had fogged his memory. But the space where he knew he had parked was empty. No glass. No scratches. Just an empty stretch of gravel and an old coffee cup. He called the police. A young officer took his statement, then asked him to wait on hold as she checked their records. "Sir, your car wasn't stolen," she said after a moment. Mason frowned. "What do you mean?" "It was sold. Earlier today. Legally." His blood turned cold. "Sold? That's impossible. That car's mine, I bought it outright last year." She read the name listed as the legal owner, Franklin Daniels. His father. Mason felt the world tilt beneath him. He hadn't thought about the paperwork in months. Back when he bought the car, he'd needed a cosigner to secure the loan. His credit was decent but still building. So, like any naive 20-something, he'd asked his dad. Franklin had agreed, and the car was placed under both their names, though it was Mason who paid every installment, every insurance premium, every tank of gas. When he finally paid the loan off, he forgot to update the title. And now, he understood the cost of that oversight. That night, a coworker gave him a ride home. Mason sat in the passenger seat, fists clenched in his lap, replaying every time he'd trusted his father, every time he'd covered for his parents' bills, fixed their leaking faucet, helped them fill out their taxes, taken their abuse in silence. His parents weren't poor. They just liked to pretend they were when it suited them. The kind of people who'd cry broke when Mason needed braces, then go out for a sushi dinner and a wine tasting the same night. He hadn't lived with them in years, but their grip lingered like an unpaid debt. Earlier that week, his apartment complex had started repaving the parking lot, and overnight parking had been suspended. Mason had asked if he could leave his car at their house for 2 nights. Just 2 nights. Apparently, it had only taken 1. When he got home, he opened Facebook. He didn't expect to see much, maybe another picture of his dad's dog or cousin's engagement post. What he found instead was a photo of his parents lounging poolside at a 5-star mountain resort. His mother wore oversized sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat. His father had one arm around her and the other cradling a drink with a pineapple wedge on the rim. The caption read, "Much-needed escape. Life's too short not to treat yourself." He stared at the photo for a long time, rage twisting slowly in his gut. They returned a week later like nothing had happened. Mason was already waiting when they walked through the door, sun-kissed, giggling, dragging their designer luggage across the tiled floor. "Hey, sport," his dad said casually, stretching like he'd just won a tennis match. "You figure out the bus schedule yet?" Mason didn't speak. His father dropped his wallet on the kitchen counter like he was home from the office. "Come on, it was just a car. You'll bounce back." "You sold my car," Mason said, voice flat. "We needed the money more than you needed the car," his dad replied, cracking open a cold beer. "Besides, it was just sitting there. It's not like you don't have other options." Mason stared at the man. The same man who once scolded him for leaving a light on for too long. The same man who pretended every dollar spent on Mason was a burden. His mother chimed in, already unpacking. They had a last-minute deal. All-inclusive. Really once in a lifetime. "Don't be dramatic," his father added. "It's not the end of the world." Mason sat down on the edge of the couch, eyes burning, heart pounding with something he hadn't felt in years. Clarity. "You could have called," he said. "Asked. Talk to me. We're family," his dad said, dismissively. "Families do things for each other." "Funny," Mason said, his voice calm but slicing. "I don't remember you asking when you needed groceries last month. Or when you used my name to open a new utility account." His mother flinched slightly but said nothing. "You didn't raise me," Mason said. You used me. And for the first time in his life, he didn't back down. Later that night, Mason sat alone in his apartment, staring at a bank statement filled with transactions he had made to support them, rent payments, gas, food, even a few credit card payments he'd quietly absorbed. He scrolled further until he reached the car payments, all in his name. All from his account. He wasn't just angry anymore. He was done. He opened a new folder on his laptop and labeled it Legal Steps. Because what they took wasn't just his car. It was his trust. And they weren't going to take anything else. Mason Daniels didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed with the hum of his ceiling fan above him and the echo of his father's voice ringing in his ears. We needed the money more than you needed a car. The sheer audacity of it churned his stomach, how casually his parents had sold something he worked for. Something he needed. Something that wasn't theirs. By morning, Mason's fatigue had calcified into cold, hard resolve. He was going to talk to them. Not yell. Not cry. Just talk. He needed to hear it again, face to face, to confirm what he already knew. His parents saw him as a wallet, not a son. Their house still smelled like cinnamon air freshener and leftover Chinese food when he walked through the door. His father was lounging in the recliner, scrolling through his phone. His mother was humming to herself in the kitchen, wearing silk pajama pants and a sparrow with queen stitched on the back. You're here early, his dad said without looking up. We need to talk, Mason said. His father set his phone down with exaggerated effort. Still sulking over the car? Mason's jaw tensed. You didn't just take a car, Dad. You took my way to work. That car made me money. I used it for deliveries. Extra hours. His father rolled his eyes. You'll get another one. That's not the point. His father's smirk was so casual, so dismissive, it lit something dangerous in Mason's chest. We didn't take it, son. It was ours, technically. You mean the title you insisted stay in your name? After I made every single payment? Yeah, real technical. His mother appeared in the doorway, holding a shopping bag. Honey, don't be like this. We even brought you something back from the resort. She reached into the bag and pulled out a souvenir keychain, a flimsy piece of wood with palm trees etched into it. The name on it wasn't even his. Look, she said with a wide smile, a little piece of paradise. You're acting like we sold your dog or something. Mason stared at the trinket, then past it, his eyes catching on a second bag, sleek black with gold lettering. His gut turned. Is that? He asked, walking over and picking it up. Inside was a velvet-wrapped bottle of Louis XIII cognac. Price tag, nearly $3,000. For Uncle Ray, his mother said cheerfully. You know how much he's helped us over the years. Mason's throat went dry. You mean he lends you money when you blow yours on crap like this? The smiles vanished. Watch your tone, his dad snapped. He's family. So am I, Mason replied. His father scoffed. You're young. You'll bounce back. Ray's helped us out a lot. No, Mason said slowly, I've helped you. You just didn't notice. His father stood up. You're overreacting. You're being dramatic. It's one car. We've paid for you your whole life. There it was. The real justification. You think I owe you, Mason said. His dad shrugged. We gave you everything. You gave me the bare minimum, and then you kept a receipt for it. Mason's voice was flat now, emotionless. When I was a kid, you told me we couldn't afford new school shoes, then bought a new grill the next day. You told me college was too expensive, then flew to the Bahamas 2 months later. His mother looked like she wanted to argue, but Mason didn't let her. You didn't raise me out of love. You raised me out of obligation. And the second I made money, I became your backup plan. We're family, his dad said again, like it was a magic phrase that erased the last decade of neglect. Mason smiled, bitterly. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't lie. Family doesn't make you feel like a burden for needing anything. His dad's voice dropped. You'd really throw us under the bus over a car? No, Mason said. I'm done carrying you. That night, they showed up at his apartment. 6 a.m. They banged on the door like debt collectors. Mason opened it with a glass of water in his hand and no intention of pretending. You've got some nerve, his dad growled, barging in. Cutting us off? After everything we've done for you? Done for me? Mason repeated. Or done to me? His mother followed, arms crossed, mascara smudged. We're losing everything, Mason. Not my problem. You're really going to throw away your parents over this? I'm going to protect myself because of this. Then Mason pulled out the final card. He opened his banking app and pulled up 3 years' worth of car payments, every installment, every insurance bill, every maintenance cost. All from his account. Not a cent from them. "You might have had your name on the title," he said, "but I bought that car. I have proof. And if you don't pay me back, I'll take you to court." His dad scoffed. "You wouldn't." "I would. We're family." "You're thieves." His mother looked like she was going to cry. "Alex, please." "No," Mason said, standing tall. "You stole from me. Now you'll deal with the consequences." He turned toward the door. "Where are you going?" his mother asked. "To see a lawyer." The door closed behind him with a satisfying click. In that moment, Mason didn't just walk away from his parents. He walked away from the lie they had told his entire life, that family could hurt you, use you, take from you, and still deserve your love. Not anymore. Mason Daniels expected pushback. He expected more voicemails, more knocks on his door, more tearful pleas from his mother and passive-aggressive lectures from his father. What he didn't expect was Uncle Harvey showing up on a Thursday night with a leather briefcase and a face like stone. Mason had barely gotten home from work. He was standing in his kitchen, heating leftover lasagna, when the doorbell rang. He opened the door slowly. Uncle Harvey. The financially responsible one. His dad's older brother. Always in a tie, even on weekends. Always offering business advice no one asked for. But he paid his debts and didn't take nonsense. "Mind if I come in?" Harvey asked. Mason stepped aside silently. Harvey placed his briefcase on the kitchen table, sat down like he was in a deposition, and folded his hands. "So," Harvey said, "your parents are in a full-blown meltdown." Mason leaned against the fridge. "Sounds about right." Harvey let out a deep sigh. "They told me you're threatening to sue over a car." "No," Mason replied calmly. "I'm suing because they sold something that was legally theirs, but entirely mine financially. Without asking. Without telling me. To fund a vacation I wasn't even told about. It wasn't about a car, it was about theft." Harvey gave him a long look. "They're your parents," he finally said. "And they stole from me," Mason shot back. "You know they don't have the money to pay you back, right?" Mason folded his arms. "Then maybe they shouldn't have spent it on beachfront cocktails and $3,000 liquor for Uncle Ray." Harvey sighed and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "I'm not saying you're wrong," he muttered. "But you're about to burn the last bridge in your family." Mason's eyes didn't waver. "Then maybe that bridge deserved to burn." Harvey gave him a slow, appraising nod. "So you're serious?" "I've already met with a lawyer." Harvey hesitated. Then opened his briefcase and pulled out a slim envelope. "I talked to your father. I tried to convince him to make this right. He didn't listen, of course. But I'm willing to offer a compromise. I'll cover half of what they owe you, right now, if you drop the case." Mason raised an eyebrow. "You're offering me hush money?" "I'm offering you a way out," Harvey said. "No court fees. No drama. You get some of the money, and this ends quietly." Mason considered it. For a moment, the idea of escaping all this was tempting. But then he remembered the night he walked in after a 12-hour shift to find his car missing. He remembered his father's smirk. His mother's forced laugh. The souvenir keychain with the wrong name. He walked to the counter and pulled up his banking app. 3 years, Mason said, turning the screen toward Harvey. "Every single payment. Every dollar, mine. Every mile, mine." And they sold it like it was a pair of shoes they didn't want anymore. Harvey exhaled. "You have a case. I have a win." There was silence between them. "You understand what this will do to them?" "I understand what they already did to me." Harvey finally stood up, snapping his briefcase closed. "They'll never forgive you. They never respected me." At the door, Harvey paused. "You sure about this?" "I've never been more sure." And he meant it. The fallout came fast. Within days of Harvey's visit, Mason's phone exploded with calls, from cousins, distant aunts, and even his grandmother. "Lisa, cousin, Mason, your mom said you're trying to bankrupt them. Is that true?" "Cousin Eli, dude, you're suing your parents?" "Grandma, sweetheart, please. They made a mistake. But they're still your family." Mason didn't respond. He didn't answer texts. Didn't reply to emails. He let the messages pile up like junk mail. Because he knew what this was. It wasn't concern. It was control. Then, at 8 p.m., came the last attempt. "Mom, Mason, I'm begging you. We'll figure something out. Dad, if you go through with this, you're dead to us. Mom, please don't ruin our lives. Mason stared at the screen. Then typed one message. You ruined your own lives the moment you stole from me. And he turned off his phone. The next week, his lawyer texted. They're trying to negotiate. Want to hear the offer? Mason rolled his eyes. Let's hear it. An hour later, Mason sat across from Mr. Landry, his attorney, in a small but tidy office downtown. Landry slid a paper across the table, smirking. This is their offer. Mason picked it up. $200 and a sincere apology. With a clause asking him to never bring it up again. He blinked. Are they serious? They think your pain is worth $200, Landry said. Mason set the paper down. Forget it. We're going to court. The trial didn't last long. Mason's side had bank statements, loan records, the final title payout. He hadn't missed a single payment in 3 years. The car was functionally his. His parents' defense? We're his parents. The judge didn't blink. Within 20 minutes, Mason won. Full market value. Additional damages for financial loss. Emotional distress compensation. 60 days to pay before wage garnishment and asset seizures began. As the ruling was read, his mother gasped. His father turned red, fists clenched. Outside the courthouse, she caught up to him. Mason, please, she sobbed, grabbing his sleeve. This will ruin us. He gently pulled his arm away. You ruined yourselves. His father stormed out after him, spitting venom. You're selfish. You think about no one but yourself. Mason turned. No, he said quietly. For once, I am thinking about myself. And he walked away. The countdown began the moment the gavel fell. 60 days. That was the window Mason's parents had to repay everything, market value of the car, court-mandated damages, and the legal fees they'd never imagined could fall on them. They had walked into court like they were untouchable. They walked out looking like shadows of themselves, stunned that their son, quiet, dependable Mason, had actually gone through with it. Mason didn't celebrate with champagne or a victory lap. He didn't post on social media. He went home, made pasta, and finally slept through the night for the first time in years. Peace wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, and earned. The next 2 months were a slow unraveling. His parents did exactly what Mason expected. They ignored the ruling, pretended the debt didn't exist, and hoped he would back down. But the legal system didn't forget. Wage garnishment kicked in 3 weeks after the deadline passed. Their paychecks, already stretched thin by their inflated lifestyle, began shrinking. Automatic withdrawals seized portions of their income like a phantom hand reaching into their pockets every payday. Then came the real blow. Foreclosure. Turns out, Mason wasn't the only one they'd treated like a piggy bank. Over the past 2 years, they had quietly taken out a second mortgage on their house to fund their vacations, luxury dining, and pointless upgrades. They'd spent tens of thousands like monopoly money. Now, with their wages docked and no savings to cover the gaps, the bank came calling. One morning, Mason's phone lit up with a text from Uncle Harvey. They're moving out today. Hope it was worth it. Mason stared at the message. Then typed back. It was. A week later, the final phase of their collapse began, what Mason privately dubbed the redemption tour. His mother called first. He didn't answer. Then came the messages. Mom. Mason, please. We're losing everything. I don't know where we're going to live. Can we talk? Just for a minute? We're your parents. Do we really mean nothing to you? Then came the guilt-laced threat from his father. Dad. I'm disappointed in you. You ruined this family. Hope you're proud of yourself. Terrible person. Mason read each one in silence. He didn't respond. Not because he didn't feel anything, but because he had finally learned to feel only what was his. For years, every dollar he saved was shadowed by guilt. Every vacation he skipped, every repair job he squeezed into his weekends, every bill he covered was buried under the phrase, "We're family. We help each other." But they never helped him. They demanded. Expected. Guilt-tripped. They took. Now, without him to catch them, they were falling. And for once, he didn't feel the urge to break their fall. According to a cousin, his parents ended up in a small rental unit 2 towns away, an old duplex with thin walls and creaky stairs. No more ocean view balconies. No more weekend winery trips. No more $1,000 dinners with borrowed money. Uncle Harvey stopped bailing them out. So did the rest of the family. Once word spread about what really happened, how they sold Mason's car without consent, how they laughed off his loss, how they dared to insult him while sipping imported liquor, their support dried up. "They're alone now," one cousin texted. "They did it to themselves." Mason didn't reply. He didn't need to. As for Mason, he flourished. He bought a new car, sleek, efficient, and in his name only. No co-signers. No shared title. No strings. He started saving for a house of his own, something small and quiet, with a garden out back and space for a dog. For the first time, every paycheck went toward building his life, not maintaining someone else's. His evenings were filled with peace. He read more. Cooked more. Smiled more. The absence of chaos didn't feel empty, it felt like finally being able to hear his own thoughts again. Sometimes, he wondered if he was supposed to feel guilty. He didn't. Because guilt had been used as a leash his whole life. And he'd finally unclipped it. They hadn't just taken his car. They'd stolen his dignity, again and again, year after year, and convinced him it was love. Now, he understood what love looked like. It had boundaries. It had respect. And it never, ever required betrayal to prove its worth. One evening, Mason stood in the driveway of his new apartment complex, watching the sunset reflect off the hood of his new car. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hey. This is Mom. We're trying to rebuild. I hope someday you can forgive us." He let the screen dim in his hand. Not out of spite. But because some messages didn't deserve an answer. 3 months after the court ruling, Mason Daniels felt something strange when he woke up. He wasn't worried. No gnawing anxiety about unpaid bills. No silent pressure to check his phone for messages filled with guilt or demands. No pit in his stomach every time someone knocked on the door. He got out of bed, brewed his coffee, and stepped out onto the small balcony of his apartment, his space, his life. The fall breeze rustled the trees, carrying with it the scent of change. Real change. He'd done it. He'd broken free. It hadn't been easy. In the days after the judgment, the texts from his parents got increasingly desperate. Not in anger, but in sheer, wide-eyed panic. "Mom. Mason, please. We're losing everything. I don't know where we're going to live. Dad. You're dead to us. Mom again. Can we talk? Just for a minute? Please. You're our son." Each message was like a final flare from a sinking ship. And Mason watched them fade out, one by one, with the quiet resolve of someone who had finally made peace with his own story. Because that's what it was now, his story. Not theirs. He'd heard from extended family, of course. Cousins and aunts who'd once idolized his parents' lifestyle started to distance themselves once the truth came out. A few even reached out to Mason privately, saying they'd always suspected something was off. Turns out, he hadn't been the only one they'd borrowed money from. They were serial manipulators. Masters of the guilt game. But for once, their favorite target had said no. And that no had changed everything. Mason's parents were now living in a cramped, run-down apartment a few towns over. No more house. No more vacations. No more financial lifelines. Uncle Harvey had cut ties. So had most of the family. The empire they'd built on borrowed charm and other people's money had finally collapsed. And Mason? He built something else entirely. He bought a new car. Not a status symbol, but something reliable. Efficient. Completely his. The first time he slid into the driver's seat and turned the key, he felt something tighten in his chest. Relief. Victory. Ownership. It was just a car, yes, but it was a milestone. Then, he started saving for a home. Not a palace, not some flashy place to impress others. Just a small space with a patch of yard, a porch, and enough room for a future he could actually look forward to. Every paycheck he deposited reminded him, this is mine. Every hour worked brought him closer to his goals. No more covering for missed mortgage payments. No more emergency loans for luxury nonsense. He'd become the kind of man who could take care of himself. Not because he had to. Because he chose to. One afternoon, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, just a name scribbled in familiar cursive. From Mom. Inside was a handwritten apology, at least, it tried to be. "We didn't realize how much you were hurting. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just expected you to understand. We were struggling." There was no mention of the stolen car. No acknowledgement of the court case. No sign of real accountability. Just more of the same old spin. Mason read it once, folded it neatly, and set it aside. Not because it didn't affect him. Because it didn't control him anymore. On his 27th birthday, Mason invited a few close friends over. Nothing fancy, burgers, beer, and laughter that echoed through his apartment like the music of a new beginning. One friend asked him, halfway through a game of cards, "Do you ever miss them?" Mason paused. Then smiled. "Sometimes I miss the idea of them. What I wanted them to be." He looked around the room, real friends, honest joy, freedom. But I don't miss the version that made me feel small. Later that night, after the guests had left, Mason sat on his balcony with a notebook in hand. Not for work. Not for to-do lists. Just for himself. At the top of the page, he wrote, "Things I've learned. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who respects your boundaries. Guilt isn't love. Walking away doesn't make you cold. It makes you free. You don't owe anyone your peace. Especially not people who only show up when they need something. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival." He closed the notebook, leaned back, and stared at the stars. For the first time in years, the future didn't scare him. It excited him. Final verdict, he didn't just win the court case. He won his life back.